Hi, this is Computer World Canada in Conversation. I'm Dave Webb. IBM makes a master data management acquisition, but it's not calling it an MDM acquisition. And Steve Jobs declares war on Flash. Kathleen Lau and Rafael Ruffolo will talk about that later, but first, we got served. We received an email from lawyers for a German company, Smartbook AG, manufacturer of PCs and desktops, suggesting that our use of the word Smartbook as a generic for e-reader was on shaky legal ground. It sounded like we needed a lawyer, so we went and saw one.
The value of a trademark comes from its distinctiveness, that consumers will recognize a product or service coming from one particular company. And if a trademark loses its distinctiveness, it loses its value. If a trademark becomes genericized and consumers recognize it not as representing the product or service of a particular company, but rather representing a category of products, that trademark has no value.
In technology, there are categories of products like netbooks, smartphones, that almost have a brand sound to them. Does it not make for more potential conflict?
Absolutely. The best trademarks are those that are coined terms or unique words that can really only represent one thing, the product that's coming from that particular company. Some companies use trademarks that sound like or are suggestive of the products or services that they're selling because it's more of an immediate connection to consumers. But the danger of having that descriptive trademark is having one that really just describes what the product is. And if your trademark is simply descriptive of the product you're selling, then it's not going to be enforceable against anyone else.
It used to be expensive to publish, and there were thousands of newspapers and magazines, but now anyone can blog, so there's literally millions of media outlets to be policed. What's the strategy for policing the blogosphere to protect your trademark?
I think the first is to recognize that brand owners don't have an absolute exclusivity over any mention of the use of their name. Mercedes, for example. A local garage can say, I repair Mercedes vehicles. And that's not use as a trademark. It's just telling the community what you do and the kind of services that your company offers. When it comes to use in a newspaper, for example, if someone uses the word Mercedes or netbook or uses another trademark simply describing what a product is, even if they use a generic term, that's not use as a trademark. So there's no action that a brand owner can take other than writing a polite letter and saying, please make sure that when you use inline skates, for example, you call them inline skates and not rollerblades, or you talk about BlackBerry, you refer to the BlackBerry product specifically, or smartphones generally if you're talking that category of products. That's relatively easy to do when it comes to newspapers or big media outlets, but practically speaking, brand owners can't enforce their trademark rights against anyone who writes a blog, goes on Twitter, or otherwise uses the internet to publish what they write down on their keyboard. I think the best strategy for brand owners is to focus their efforts on what's going to give them the most bang for their buck when it comes to policing their brands.
So really, it begins with the selection of the brand itself.
Absolutely. With technology, with any other industry, the key is to have a brand that's unique to you and it's not descriptive of the products and services that you sell.
Next up, IBM buys Initiate, a master data management company, but IBM's not calling it an MDM acquisition. Kathleen, why don't you tell us something about it?
Okay, as you said, IBM did purchase Chicago-based Initiate Systems just earlier this week. And of course, as one might expect, rival Informatica came out with some criticisms regarding IBM's plans, and specifically it said that IBM in its press release did not describe Initiate as an MDM vendor, and instead it described it as a data quality technology vendor, and therefore customers of Initiate should be concerned that perhaps IBM has some ulterior motives and that it intends to perhaps repurpose this technology into something else. In looking at the blogosphere, I haven't seen analysts concur with Informatica, but there are certain concerns out there among industry observers that IBM has traditionally had some issues integrating all of its acquisitions that it's done, and perhaps this might be the case with Initiate's technology as well. And of course, Informatica believes the same thing. Informatica is saying that IBM has a very fragmented approach to MDM, and again, customers should be demanding to know from IBM what its plans are.
Do you think there's more to this than semantics?
Well, from what I've seen, it does look like it is just nitpicking on semantics on Informatica's part. Speaking with an analyst based in California, it appears that IBM does have some plans to make use of Initiate's MDM technology as MDM. But although IBM has had problems in the past integrating and rationalizing its portfolio of offerings. There has been a bit of a change in the past 2 years. IBM is focusing on really rebuilding its information assets, so I don't think we'll really see a problem for Initiate's customer base moving forward.
There's been a bit of acquisition action on the MDM front lately.
Yeah, there's been quite a bit actually since January. Oracle bought Silver Creek Systems. Then earlier this month of February, rival Informatica also bought Cyperion, and then followed by the IBM announcement of its acquisition. It's rather interesting because up until Informatica bought Cyperion, there were really only 3 main vendors in the MDM market, and those were Oracle, SAP, and IBM. And now that Informatica has bought Cyperion, which is a pretty good partnership from what people are saying, it looks like now Informatica is set to really bolster its presence in that area.
Great, thanks, Kathleen. Meanwhile, Steve Jobs declares war on Flash. There's no Flash support in the iPhone, none in the iPad, and Steve Jobs has called the software buggy and its developers lazy. Raphael, you've been following that?
Yeah, I've been following that really closely. It's very interesting. I guess you could say it started earlier this week. Basically, Adobe's CTO Kevin Lynch, he comes out and he says, we've got Flash support lined up for pretty much every smartphone. You know, all the Android-based smartphones, the Palm Pre, even BlackBerry as well. But there's only one holdout, and that's the iPhone. And he also referred to the iPad not having Flash support. And he called it, Apple's latest magical device. Took a couple shots on his blog at Apple. Jobs comes back. He responds with what you had mentioned with the lazy comment and also the buggy comment. The blogosphere is really going off on this. A lot of people, if you're an Apple fanboy, you're basically applauding what Jobs is saying. A lot of them are talking about how Flash is just the #1 cause for any plug-in issues that you find on the Mac OS, and now they're all applauding the fact that they're not going to see that show up on the iPhone and the iPad.
Well, Jobs is also saying that everybody's going to go to HTML 5.1 anyway, and then Flash is going to be unnecessary.
Yeah, that's what they've been saying. Here's my take on this whole situation. I think both companies right now are in the wrong. I think, first of all, to make this big public display over this dispute is really rather pathetic for both parties. I mean, there's even talk now with Steve Jobs having it was on an Apple rumor site, but I mean, it seems like it could be pretty credible, that he basically took some more shots at Adobe at a company meeting recently, and he's calling him not creative anymore. It was a creative company that's really lost that creativity. So I really question what's going on here with this big dispute. Maybe it's deeply rooted, I'm not sure. But my take on the whole debate is, sure, HTML5 might be the answer, but right now you have something like 70 or 75% of videos on the web that use Flash. So it doesn't really make sense why Apple wouldn't just support it on their devices for now, and then slowly bring the HTML5 in.
Yes, my infatuation with the iPad is waning.
Yeah, this isn't helping if you want to go out there and take advantage of all those great Flash enabled websites.
Great, thanks, Raphael.
Sure.
Thank you, Kathleen. Thank you, Trent Horn. And thanks. We'll